Welcome back to Humble Running, part 2 of my Speedgoat 7 review here. I did hit 25.2 miles yesterday, 4,600 feet of elevation gain, capping off a 101-mile week for me. 35 miles of that over the course of Saturday and Sunday in the Speedgoat 7, fresh out of the box. I did run into some darkness at the end of my test run yesterday. Ran a little late, 4+ hours, but I did have all of the shoe models that you see in front of you back at the van. My intention was to do a close-up as soon as I got back, but too dark, so have them next morning right in front of me today. Of course, the HOKA model lineup that I have great experience testing in, and a couple of new shoes that just came in. I've had some questions on the channel about the Nike shoe, posted some stuff about the Adidas shoe, did have some questions about that one, and of course this beautiful shoe did just show up, so I have some ideas in mind and some thoughts about how these shoes perform in comparison to the Speedgoat 7. So I'm just gonna run through that right here, talk through everything. I have no script here. I have one quick spreadsheet with just the specs of all these shoes in front of me. Other than that, we're just gonna talk it through. So I did love the Speedgoat 7, 35 miles again over the course of the weekend, 25 miles in them just yesterday. Got back, no foot issues at all. No heel rubbing, no ankle rubbing, no toe blisters, nothing at all. I also did see that Sage Candidate ran this shoe at Black Canyon 100K over the weekend, ran it to a top 10 finish. So something I was discussing in my previous videos, which I hope you've seen already. It is definitely a bomber training shoe. Do it all in this shoe, and certainly range for racing. And being that Sage did get top 10 at 100K, elite athletes can certainly run in a shoe like this, so certainly us normal folk can also do so. One negative that I did not talk about in the review, because it's kind of something that's hard for me to feel out. I did get questions about another shoe, the Kip Summit race model, in terms of breathability. And I typically don't get hot feet on the run. Fingers is a different story. I'm gonna do a winter glove roundup before it gets too warm. My fingers tend to get a lot colder than my feet, so breathability is something that I don't typically notice so much on the run, but I do try to pay attention to so I can report back on that. The upper material here, you don't have a liner on the inside here. It is a single layer mesh, but this whole black area right here, it seems to be a pretty kind of, it's like a stiff, rigid type of weave here. Again, I didn't have any irritation. 25 miles yesterday, 10 miles the day before. It didn't cause any irritation anywhere around my feet in the front, but I do notice that it is not quite breathable. I'm trying to do the blow test on this specific patch of black upper material, and it is a little bit tough to blow air through there. And I do notice that it's a tight weave here, so you're not going to get much breathability anywhere around this area. Of course, you have the toe cap here, no breathability through there. I did check over here, so this vamp is a kind of stretchy mesh here, and this is definitely breathable. So the air is going to come into the toe box right through here. Also did a close-up on those underlays, which are kind of spanning here and here on both sides of the shoe. In between those underlays, these areas, they're kind of small, I would say. I'm looking at it from the inside here. Pretty much this area right here and this small area over here. Swing around to the other side. That would be this area right here and this area right here. Those are kind of your breathability patches, I would say. And that mesh, even if I look very close up, I could see kind of through that mesh. It's more of a translucent, and I could see actually gaps in the mesh here where air is going to flow through. And again, this kind of knit vamp area, it's not a knit material, I don't know what you call that, some kind of mesh over here, but that is a breathable mesh. Not the case here. This black stuff right here in this colorway is definitely tighter, less breathable than what you have along those areas over here. So if breathability is a concern for you, that's something I would keep an eye on with this shoe. It doesn't bother me at all. So Sage also ran this out at Black Canyon. I heard it wasn't crazy hot out there, but definitely typically a warm racer out in the desert. He seemed to do okay. I didn't hear anything. In terms of placement, he seemed to do okay. So it may or may not be a concern depending on your level of typical foot warmth in a running shoe. Okay, let's just go look through some models here. Off the top of my head here, I've got the Una Speedgoat 2 here. So this is basically same as the Speedgoat 2, re-released here. I talked about this on the run. The compression molded EVA on this Speedgoat and previous Speedgoats, it's just a softer, squishier kind of foam. You really lean into that deepness of cushion, that soft feeling underfoot, whereas it's pretty different with this one. You get a lot more response. Now that it's super critical, even as I'm pressing on it here, I could feel a noticeable bounce back from that super critical foam that you have not gotten. Certainly, I could feel it just softer squishing in and less pushback, less response out of the midsole itself. I could feel it with my thumb even, and this is based on the Speedgoat 2. I'm not sure if these foam formulations have changed since the original release. Another thing I will point out is Lite insole here. That definitely leads to an even more enhanced level of softness underfoot. Take a look at the Speedgoat 7. What have we got? I know what we got. No Lite in this model. So they went super critical. I'm not sure what was in Speedgoat 6, but I do believe they have been using Lite insoles. Somebody could correct me on that. This is notably not a super critical. It seems to be a standard EVA type midsole. You get a little texture areas under there, but you're not getting that loss of response due to, say, a softer Lite insole. Lite insoles sell shoes, but in my opinion, they do not perform. Take a look at Mafate 5 here. This does seem to be, I believe this is definitely a super critical insole foam here, so a little bit more response out of the insole itself here. I'm not sure why they went with a regular, it seems, EVA insole in here. That's an easy swap out if you could. I haven't actually looked because I just took these out of the box, literally 2 days, 35 miles of running. I haven't played around with insole swapping yet, but if you were concerned about this EVA just pancaking out pretty easily, you could try to go find something else that is a little bit more responsive, a little bit more durable. I could feel this one. I put some good amount of miles in this Mafate 5 and the insole still feels fresh. So I had thought HOKA had turned the corner, moving to kind of more super critical, more better materials in the insoles, not just the midsoles, but it looks like they got standard EVA in the Speedgoat 7. Okay, so let's move down. Actually, I got this one in hand. Talk about the Mafate 5, something I just talked about on the run. 8 mil drop here, 6 mil here. Very soft in the heel. I also talked about the platforms, put them up on the screen there. HOKA platforms tend to be quite similar. These are quite similar at the forefoot and the middle of the shoe, but as you can see, in the heel, this one is just a little bit wider, and it's just, I believe this is, yes, measured 46 at the heel, 38 under the forefoot. Of course, with the Speedgoat 7 here, 37, 32. So nearly 10 millimeters more under the heel in this shoe, and that's kind of why they give you that little extra heel platform width there. It's also feeling much softer. I would say I like the response of this shoe. They do have this firmer kind of layer over here. I feel like this is a responsive midsole foam, but there's just so much of it that you tend to kind of like sink into it. Also, the shoe is very heavy, 11.6, yes, 11.6 ounces here, and 10.2 with the Speedgoat 7. So even though the foam feels responsive, you got that rocker integrity technology wings there. I think it does work to kind of hold together the ride there. But again, 11.6 ounces. This is a heavyweight shoe. Coming back to the drop, 8 millimeters here, 6 millimeters here. With this softness here, you kind of land with the softer foam. You kind of squish into it. 8 mil, one of the reasons they went to 8 mil, can tend to feel like 6, even with a shoe like this being 6 mil, it could kind of feel closer to 4, even a little bit flatter sometimes. In fact, when you have that softer foam, you land, you sink in. They stuck with the 6 here, and with the more responsive, super critical foam that does tend to hold up, it does actually feel more like an appropriate 6 mil, a 6 mil that kind of holds its drop, so to speak, compared to some of those 6 mil drops of the past that would kind of sink in. Speaking of drops here, you got 4 mil here. This is the Mafate 4 Lite version, Mafate Speed 4 Lite version. This is a 4 mil drop, and I've talked about this. It feels like it could even be like 2 mil, or even it rides almost like a flat shoe because the midsole is so soft. You only have 4 mil, so you get that kind of sinking in effect that I was just talking about, and it just feels like a flatter kind of ride on the run in actuality compared to the spec stack measurement. So 8 mil here, it's gonna feel kind of close to the 6 mil in the Speedgoat 7, but these are definitely different shoes. This is gonna be like full on crazy long distance shoe. Certainly if you're a bigger runner, you may like to be running in this much stack. Maybe a shoe like this is not enough if you are getting into those crazy long ultra distances. I did a little mini comparison of this shoe with the EX330, another one with just a lot underfoot. That one more for technical terrain. This one, you know, it has that HOKA feel, that HOKA softness, just like so much of it, but at a heavier weight, of course. So a little bit different than the Speedgoat 7. I think I would like to say I could put everyday kind of training miles in this, but it would have to be like, I don't know, days when I wasn't concerned about pulling this much weight around, if I was like not caring about my pace at all, really just a like 1000% comfort shoe. Speedgoat 7, as I talked about, this is absolutely, for me, could be the perfect everyday running shoe. I mean, the training shoe and racing option. It just, that 6 mil drop that holds up, feels great. The cushion is not soft and mushy, but it is enough to cushion the foot on a day like, say, after a long run like that, even though I actually ran in this shoe itself. Typically, you feel a little beat up. You want to have a little cush the day after, say, a workout or a long run. I'm going to talk about that in regards to a couple of other shoes here, but I could probably just run in this shoe again because it still does have that cushion that feels comfortable, even if the legs are beat up. Quick look at the Tecton X3 here. I've got this one weighed in at 9.7 ounces. Double check the stack here, 40-35. So it is a little bit more than the Speedgoat 7. I feel a little bit, say, closer to the ground in this one. Really good feel in some twisty turny sections that I ran yesterday. The upper, again, don't want to beat a dead horse here, but it feels so good. I feel really strapped onto this shoe, like I could just throw my feet around everywhere, and I just feel so locked in. That's not really the case with the Tecton X3. Certainly the bit of added stack, 40-35, it's a touch more, and I'd say it's a touch softer, and they're also throwing in the plate there. So you have a softer feel. The plate maintains the efficiency, so it's not a mushy softness. This is obviously a race shoe for top professional athletes and pretty much range for regular runners and everyone in between, due to the fact that it has that softness and it has that efficiency from the plate. Most general runners, I'm going to talk about the difference between pro runners and, say, everyday runners, or kind of maybe something in between like myself, as it relates to a shoe like this new ACG Ultrafly Trail, compared to a shoe like this where it maintains that softness and you still feel efficient on the run. So I would say that is probably a difference between a shoe like this and the ACG Ultrafly Trail. Again, I'm going to talk about that in a second there. But as it relates to the Speedgoat 7, a little softer underfoot, but the foothold of this Matrix upper, definitely not as good as the Speedgoat 7. I find the foot security on this one is okay. It's well enough to keep the shoe on your feet, a little bit of a bathtub design. You also have that with the Speedgoat 7. These sidewalls, typical of a Speedgoat, but it just feels good on this with that midfoot hold. It makes, I feel like it enhances this kind of bathtub design. These are kind of sidewalls wrapping up the lower sides of your foot in the Speedgoat 7. Very stable on foot there. You don't quite have that here. There's a bit of a bathtub design, but I feel like the upper is just a lot looser. There's some overlays here, or underlays I should say, but but it just doesn't strap the foot down as much as this one. If they could somehow get whatever's going on in this Speedgoat, we'll see what happens with Tecton X4. I've seen a couple pictures, but I haven't studied them too closely. If they can get the level of strapping the foot down that they have in the Speedgoat 7 on this midsole with the plate in there and everything, that would just be awesome. Maybe that's coming with the Tecton X4. We can only hope, but that has been kind of maybe the sore spot, or the, I would say, you know, the weak spot of this for most runners. It's just the foothold. Again, softer, bouncier, the plates. That's gonna make it more unstable than a shoe like this. It's not as soft. You don't have the plates. It's more stable, I would say, on the run. There's more action in this midsole here and less upper hold, but the shoe is definitely lighter. So there's probably some elements in here that add up to that 10.2 ounces that you don't have here at 9.7 ounces. We're talking about my sizing here. Again, all of these HOKA shoes I have in front of me, I have in a US 10. So US 10 is my HOKA sizing. Occasionally I'll have a 9.5, but typically for trail running, especially when I want to have that extra space, US 10 for HOKA. I've got these shoes in for testing. Agravic TT from Adidas. Full disclosure, I've got 10 miles in this Ultrafly trail, just one test run. Check out my first impressions video. I wanted to get mainly the fit and sizing out there on this one as it relates, because a lot of people are interested in how different shoes fit compared to each other. So I definitely wanted to get that out there after just one run. Haven't videoed this one yet, but I did do about 7 or 8 miles in this one. I'm thinking of doing another type of video where I talk about this shoe and this shoe in relation to each other, and possibly the Speedgoat 7, so I won't go into too much detail here, but these are kind of like racing shoes, and I find them similar in the fact that they have a level of stiffness under the middle of the shoe that I don't quite find in the Speedgoat 7. This is billed as a technical trail shoes. It's in the name itself, TT. There's a rock plate in the mix, no plate of course in the Speedgoat 7, so a little bit different there. And there's also, I find, quite a bit of stiffness under here. You can actually see both of these shoes. I have lace locking set up for both. I did not lace lock this shoe on my first run, but I tried it on later on for my next test run. I'm definitely going to lace lock it. With the stiffness of this shoe and this shoe, I kind of have trouble, even though they're super well padded in the heel. Pretty much the same heel padding as you find in the Speedgoat 7. Nice big ring of padding around all three of these shoes. Not a millimeter of heel movement in the Speedgoat 7. These two, I find I struggle. I could feel my heel kind of pulling up a little bit, especially in this one here. I'm gonna try the lace locking, see how that feels. Same thing with this one. Again, stiffness here. You've got the rock plate in the mix. It feels a bit firmer on the run. I'm not sure if they had this really pegged as a true race shoe, as in technical trails where you really absolutely need that rock plate. I took them out on a kind of easier day, talked about legs feeling beat up after a workout or a long run. I think I made a little bit of a mistake. I took them out after my indoor speed session. The next day I thought, okay, this is kind of like, I also have the Speed Ultra 2 in for test. So I figured I'd take the training shoe out the day after my workout, and they just felt a little bit harsh underfoot, a little bit firm underfoot. So I don't think I picked the right day to run in these shoes. I think you really want to lean into that technical trails and make sure you're running on stuff where that rock plate is going to come into play in a positive way, not just say a firm way running in some of the lower foothill trails that I typically just like knock out some miles on. So the stuff, most of the terrain that you probably saw in my 35 miles of testing in this one, this shoe might feel a little bit firm depending on if your legs are fresh or not. That's another factor. Again, I ran after my legs feeling a little bit tight after that workout. So when your legs are tight, you don't have that bounce in your legs, you don't have that reactivity, you're just gonna, you know, your ground contact times are even longer. So that's more kind of firmness going through to your legs. Doesn't feel great on an easier, or what is supposed to be an easier or even recovery day. So more to come on this one for sure. Also, again, the Speed Ultra Tube. I just thought I'd point out that difference, that, you know, there's a firmness to this one. There's more versatility in this one. You can get into technical terrain with this. but you do have the rock plate here. So it's going to depend if you need that or not, or you like the firmer feel. These are going to be probably a good comparison against each other, and it's probably going to come down to the terrain that you're running in choosing between this one or that one. Moving to the Ultrafly trail, just briefly, I have many questions even after my first 10-mile first impressions run in this one. I think I'm gonna do maybe a Q&A session about this shoe specifically, because people are just, people want to know. It's Nike. They haven't updated this shoe in 2, maybe 3 years. Similar to this TT model here, I'm finding, or at least on my initial test run, this could be like a pure racing shoe. I got questions specifically about whether this is best for regular runners or pro athletes. What is this shoe designed for? Who designed this shoe? What is the target audience here? A lot of stuff like that, which I'm thinking about very closely, and I will continue as I kind of hopefully break this shoe in some more, because it does feel quite firm. It feels quite aggressive. I don't want to say firm. You have that Zoom X in there, but the entire geometry of the ride seems oriented towards running fast. It's not a soft and cushy shoe, certainly nothing like this. Even compared to the Speedgoat 7, it's less forgiving. Got questions about this being a daily training shoe. I don't feel that at all. This shoe wants you to get off the ground quick, really have that forward lean activated, legs fresh. In fact, in order to make that work, let the plate engage and, reduce that ground contact. I believe the shoe is designed primarily by professional athletes, so it is an open question as to whether or not this is the ideal shoe for the everyday or maybe even sub-elite athlete. I'm sure everybody wants to try out the Nike, but I think it's something to keep in mind. This is not like a Pegasus for the trail. If anybody is new to, say, trail running super shoes, you may see, oh, Nike has this super advanced trail running shoe. It may not be for everyone. So that is something I'm really gonna hone in on my further testing in this one. Last one here, La Sportiva Prodigio Pro, fine looking shoe here. I reached out to La Sportiva because I continued to get questions about this shoe, and perhaps the shoe of the year or one of the shoes of the year in 2025, and I think it will continue to be in the mix in 2026. There's really no shoes that are coming out with crazy stuff that is going to totally outpace what is going on in this shoe. And I did request a size US 11 here because I did want to test this on, say, longer runs. So as you know, I have my Prodigios, most of them in a 10.5. They definitely run small. This one, the first shoe I've had in a US 11. Sounds crazy. I tried it on, have not run in it yet, but I do have that extra space in the toe box here, and I think that's going to let me do some more comparison testing to some other more distance oriented shoes that I couldn't, even in the 10.5. Feels like a tight, it's not super tight, but it feels like more of a locked in fit, more for like short to mid distance running, racing, and training. Now that I have a more kind of spacious toe box in this one, a lot of thoughts come to mind. I talked about that starting off my second day of running there, that question about what would be, say, the perfect, reliable, and durable everyday trainer. This certainly was one of the shoes I responded to Matt about, the Prodigio Pro. Not this one specifically, my US 10.5, the black one that I have. Now that I have this one, could be even more range, even for longer distances, just because of the comfort in the toe box. And that led me to think, wow, it's a kind of good comparison to the Speedgoat 7 because this one does have such a great fit, as I've talked about so much. Really amazing fit in both of these models. I could see this being a great comparison test. Little bit more underfoot in this one, maybe a little bit more comfort range for some runners. Some runners may like the more flexible feel of the Prodigio Pro, definitely more energy in this Nitro TPU here. Still got good flex here, but it feels like a little bit more structure to it, which could appeal to other runners. So be on the lookout for perhaps an A/B test between these two shoes. I think that's about a wrap. Last one here. Hodos Labs, I just mentioned that because I did those 35 miles. 25 miles, I was slathering myself up in the evening and when I get home with that. seems to be working quite well, I would say. I've done it after the workout, after my last 2 long runs in the Kip Summit race, and this one, it's been feeling pretty good so far. I mean, I'm feeling great today. I'm about to head out for another run. Let me know down in the comments if you've got questions about specifically the Speedgoat 7. Also, I'm going to queue up some more questions on this Nike shoe, Adidas testing, Prodigio Pro. What are the comparisons you would like to see? Let me know down in the comments. I will see you next time out on the trails or back here for some more Q&A.